Hello and welcome to Sleepy Wiki. Tonight, I invite you to settle in, find your most comfortable space, and just let everything go. Allow your shoulders to drop, your breath to deepen and slow, and your mind to gently quiet. Tonight, we'll gently turn the pages of an ancient, sprawling book, one written not with ink, but with the quiet passage of millennia. We journey to a land steeped in legend and memory, where the very earth seems to whisper tales of bygone eras, European history. Imagine the soft sunlight falling upon forgotten ruins, the echoes of countless footsteps on cobblestone paths, the silent watch of mountains that have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. We won't rush through battles or rains, but rather drift through the enduring spirit, the slow evolution of thought, and the subtle currents that have woven together the rich, intricate tapestry of this continent. It's a journey into the deep time of human endeavor, filled with a quiet wonder, a gentle unfurling of stories that still resonate in the present. If these peaceful explorations help guide you towards restful sleep, perhaps consider leaving a gentle like or subscribing to our channel so we can continue to share these quiet moments together. But for now, let us simply close our eyes and allow the ancient whispers of Europe to carry us into the quietude of the night. Before cities whispered their names to the stars, before kingdoms etched their borders onto maps, there was only the land itself. Let us drift into the deep, deep past, to a time when Europe itself was less a continent of nations and more a vast, unfolding scroll of pristine wilderness, patiently awaiting the first delicate touch of human presence. Imagine, if you will, this ancient land as a colossal, breathing canvas. Its very shape, sculpted by forces so immense they humble the imagination. For eons, the slow, tectonic ballet of Earth's crust continued its patient work. Picture the immense African plate, nudging gently, persistently, against its Eurasian counterpart. This colossal embrace, over countless millennia, was the sculptor of mountains. The Alps, a breathtaking crown of jagged peaks, rose from this profound encounter, their snow-capped summits reaching for the sky like ancient prayers. To their west, the Pyrenees stood guard, a natural fortress separating what we now call Spain from France. These towering ramparts weren't just scenery, they were formidable barriers, shaping the paths of early migrations, channeling the flow of cultures, and often determining the very possibility of life and movement across the landscape. But this canvas was also painted with veins of life-giving water. The mighty Danube, a liquid highway, wound its way eastward across the vast great European plain, a ribbon of sustenance for flora, fauna, and eventually, humanity. The Rhine, a powerful artery, carved its path through what would become Central Europe, while countless other rivers, like the Seine, the Elbe, and the Tagus, crisscrossed the land, their waters a constant, gentle hum of creation. These rivers, in their timeless flow, weren't just geographical features. They were lifelines, providing fresh water, food, and natural pathways for early groups, guiding them deeper into the continent's heart. And then, the embrace of the seas. The vast, ever-changing Atlantic to the west, its powerful currents and rich fishing grounds a boundless larder. And the calmer, warmer Mediterranean to the south, a sparkling cradle that would much later become a highway for early civilizations. But the face of this canvas was not always as we see it today. The Earth breathes, in geological terms, in long, slow cycles of warmth and cold. For much of the period we are contemplating, this breath was icy. Europe, for hundreds of thousands of years, was repeatedly plunged into the chilling embrace of glacial periods, vast epochs we call ice ages. Imagine immense sheets of ice, miles thick, slowly grinding across the land from the north, reshaping valleys, carving out lakes, and pushing all life southward. During the last glacial maximum, which peaked around 26,500 to 19,000 years ago, much of northern Europe was entombed under this frozen blanket. Sea levels dropped dramatically as vast quantities of water were locked away in these colossal glaciers. This retreat of the seas had profound consequences. It exposed land bridges, like the now submerged Doggerland, which once connected Great Britain to continental Europe, offering an open pathway for animals and, critically, for humans to traverse what would later become the North Sea. The climate was harsh, unforgiving, often akin to the tundras and steppes of modern Siberia, supporting a unique array of megafauna: woolly mammoths, cave bears, giant deer, and saber-toothed cats. Survival in this environment demanded ingenuity, resilience, and profound adaptability. It was onto this grand, challenging stage that our earliest ancestors, or rather our ancient cousins, first stepped. The oldest human footprints in Europe date back almost 1,000,000 years, found in places like Happisburgh in the UK, left by an ancient ancestor, perhaps Homo antecessor, or an early Homo heidelbergensis. Brave explorers indeed. But it was later, around 400,000 years ago, that a distinct lineage emerged and flourished across Europe: the Neanderthals, Homo neanderthalensis. They were not clumsy brutes as once popularly imagined, but highly adapted, robust humans, masters of their frigid world. Picture them with their powerful builds, broad noses for warming cold air, and intricate stone tools belonging to what archaeologists call the Mousterian industry, crafting spears, scrapers, and points with remarkable skill. They lived in caves and open-air shelters, mastering fire not just for warmth but for cooking and crafting. Evidence from sites like Krapina in Croatia suggests they cared for their injured and buried their dead, showing a complex emotional and social life, a deep whisper from the past about empathy and connection. For hundreds of thousands of years, the Neanderthals were Europe's dominant human story, perfectly attuned to the rhythms of the Ice Age landscape. But then another ripple stirred the ancient waters. Around 45,000 to 40,000 years ago, a new wave of humanity began to arrive, emanating from Africa, making their way into Europe through routes like the Near East, and perhaps even crossing the Strait of Gibraltar. These were our direct ancestors, Homo sapiens, modern humans, with slightly lighter builds, taller statures, and a distinct suite of innovative tools: blade technologies, bone points, and eventually the sophisticated implements of the Aurignacian and Magdalenian cultures. They brought with them not just new ways of hunting and gathering, but also a profound capacity for symbolic thought and artistic expression that would soon blossom across the continent. The arrival of Homo sapiens marked a pivotal moment. For several millennia, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens coexisted, sometimes sharing landscapes, perhaps even exchanging knowledge or, in more intimate ways, exchanging genes, as evidenced by traces of Neanderthal DNA found in most non-African modern human populations. But eventually, around 40,000 to 30,000 years ago, the Neanderthals' presence dwindled, fading into the long shadows of prehistory. The reasons are still debated. Climate change, competition for resources, cultural differences, perhaps even assimilation into the larger Homo sapiens groups, or a combination of all these factors. But their legacy remains a deep and intricate part of the European story. With Homo sapiens came an explosion of cultural creativity, the Upper Paleolithic Revolution. Imagine the flickering light of a torch dancing across the damp rock walls of a deep cave, revealing breathtaking images. Galloping horses, majestic bison, powerful deer, and the enigmatic symbols of ancient mines. At Chauvet, in France, exquisite charcoal drawings whisper stories from over 36,000 years ago. At Lascaux, the vibrant Hall of Bulls bursts with life from around 17,000 years ago, and at Altamira in Spain, the magnificent bison seemed to leap from the ceiling, painted with ochre and manganese. These weren't mere decorations. They were profound expressions of connection to the natural world, perhaps spiritual rituals, hunting magic, or ways of transmitting knowledge across generations. They tell us of highly sophisticated minds, capable of abstract thought, planning, and a deep appreciation for beauty. These early Europeans were not just surviving, they were thriving, adapting, and transforming their world with ingenuity and grace. And so, as the last glacial epoch began its slow retreat, giving way to a warmer, more familiar world, these early human footprints had already left an indelible mark on the European canvas. Their resilience, their artistry, their fundamental understanding of the land and its creatures laid the foundational stones of a history yet to unfold, a history deeply connected to the very ground beneath their feet and ours. We've seen how the land itself shaped their journey. Next, we'll gently turn our gaze to how they, in turn, began to shape the land, transitioning from nomadic hunter-gatherers to settled communities, preparing the stage for the dawn of agriculture and the first permanent villages, a new chapter in Europe's ancient story. Sleep now, and dream of ancient rivers and painted caves where the whispers of the past drift softly on the wind. As those early settlements took root and generations passed, something remarkable began to emerge from the intermingling of peoples and places. Tonight, we turn our gentle gaze to the very essence of what makes a European, not just a simple label, but a deep, intricate tapestry woven from countless threads of biology, geography, shared stories, and the slow, patient unfolding of human experience. Imagine, if you will, the vast continent of Europe as a living canvas, brushed by invisible currents for tens of thousands of years. Long before maps were drawn or nations conceived, our earliest ancestors were already tracing paths across this land. Picture the cool, crisp air as the last ice sheets began their slow retreat, melting back like a forgotten dream. This was a time of movement, a great slow dance of populations. Scientists, through the incredible precision of genetics, can now read these ancient migrations in the very code of our cells, the DNA that hums quietly within each of us. They tell us that the genetic makeup of modern Europeans isn't a single uniform strand, but a rich blend, an intricate admixture of different ancestral streams. First, there were the Western hunter-gatherers, who painted caves with breathtaking art and moved with the rhythms of the wild, their genetic signatures a deep, earthy foundation in the European soil. Then, like a gentle wave spreading from the Fertile Crescent, came the early European farmers, bringing with them the revolutionary knowledge of agriculture. With their arrival, a new set of genetic markers began to ripple across the continent, blending with the existing hunter-gatherer populations. Imagine these two genetic rivers slowly merging, their waters swirling together, creating new patterns of heredity. This wasn't a sudden flood, but a gradual intermingling over centuries, shaping the very genetic landscape of the nascent continent. And later still, another powerful current arrived, flowing from the vast steppes to the east, the Pontic steppe pastoralists. These skilled horse riders and herders brought with them not only their distinctive genetic lines, but also a profound influence on language and culture. Their arrival significantly reshaped the European gene pool, adding a layer that, to this day, can be traced through specific haplogroups. Those ancient genetic lineages passed down through generations. These migrations weren't just movements of people, they were deep biological fusions, laying down the fundamental genetic strata upon which later identities would build. But the story of European identity isn't just written in our genes. It's also sculpted by the very land beneath our feet. Think of the mighty Alps, standing like a spine across the continent, or the swirling currents of the calm Mediterranean Sea, a vast blue highway connecting some regions while isolating others. These geographical features acted like natural sieves, gently directing the flow of people, ideas, and even genes. Tall mountain ranges and wide rivers often became natural barriers, slowing down gene flow and cultural exchange, allowing distinct local populations to flourish. This concept, known in biology as geographical isolation, meant that communities on one side of a mountain range might develop slightly different genetic variations and unique cultural practices compared to their neighbors just a few valleys over. Like separate ecosystems evolving within a larger biome, these pockets fostered distinct patterns of life and thought. Consider the powerful role of language. As people moved, settled, and interacted, their sounds, words, and stories evolved. The widespread Indo-European language family, which stretches across much of Europe and beyond, provides compelling linguistic evidence of ancient migrations and cultural diffusion. Imagine a single ancient tongue, slowly branching and diversifying over millennia, like a magnificent tree sending out new shoots and leaves. Each new branch, each distinct language, became a marker of a group, a way for them to express their unique world, their myths, their collective memories. These shared linguistic patterns fostered a sense of belonging, while differences created gentle, sometimes firm boundaries between groups. A common tongue could be a bridge, but a diverging dialect could become a subtle yet powerful wall, influencing how people perceived us versus them. Beyond genes and landscapes, there's the unseen architecture of the human mind, our innate capacity for social identity. As humans, we are fundamentally social creatures, wired to connect, to belong. Our brains are incredibly adept at recognizing shared traits, whether they be language, customs, or even a common threat. This isn't just a philosophical idea, it's rooted in our neurobiology. When we share stories around a campfire, when we participate in a common ritual, our brains release neurotransmitters like oxytocin, fostering feelings of trust and belonging. These shared narratives, these collective memories, are the very glue that binds groups together, creating a sense of us. The myths of ancient heroes, the shared beliefs of a community, the common experience of hardship or triumph, these aren't just stories. They are powerful architects of collective identity, helping groups to define themselves against the vast canvas of humanity. And even the grand unifying force of the Roman Empire, which for a time imposed a shared administration, law, and culture across much of Europe, ultimately played a role in shaping future identities through its eventual decline. When the vast Roman apparatus crumbled, it didn't leave a void. It left a mosaic. Local cultures, which had been simmering beneath the Roman veneer, re-emerged with renewed vigor. This period was almost like a grand biological experiment in biodiversification, where a single dominant organism, the empire, broke down, allowing smaller, more specialized forms, local kingdoms and cultures, to flourish. The collapse didn't erase Roman influences, but it allowed for a repatterning where indigenous traditions could reassert themselves and blend with the Roman legacy in unique ways, laying the groundwork for what we would recognize as early national or regional identities. In the quiet centuries that followed, through the early medieval period, we see these nascent identities slowly crystallizing. Trade routes connected distant regions, creating shared economic interests and cultural exchange, yet also reinforcing regional specialties. Pilgrimage paths wound through the land, fostering a sense of pan-European spiritual connection, while local lordships and emerging kingdoms carved out distinct political entities. The blend of shared genetic heritage, geographical distinctiveness, evolving languages, and the power of collective narratives continued to shape the diverse and complex tapestry that is European identity. So, as we settle into the gentle rhythm of the night, we can appreciate that European identity isn't a fixed destination, but a beautiful, ever-evolving journey, a living system of intertwined genetic legacies, geographical influences, and the powerful, enduring stories we tell ourselves about who we are. And as these identities continued to evolve, they would soon face new challenges, new interactions, and new ways of defining themselves in a world that was constantly changing. These evolving identities would soon need organizing principles, ways to structure their common life. Picture those early communities once more, but now ask, who decided when to plant, where to hunt, how to settle disputes? And imagine for a moment the very earliest human communities, long before the first stone castles pierced the sky. Picture small bands of hunter-gatherers, perhaps no more than a few dozen souls, roaming the vast ancient landscapes of Europe. In these intimate groups, power wasn't a crown or a throne. It was a more fluid, organic force, akin to the natural leadership seen in a wolf pack or a family of chimpanzees. Someone might be recognized as the strongest hunter, or the wisest elder who remembered the best berry patches and knew the constellations like old friends. This informal hierarchy wasn't about domination for its own sake, but about survival. The group instinctively deferred to those who could best provide for its needs or guide it through danger. an echo of the Hyde's dominance hierarchies, observed across countless social species, where establishing a pecking order minimizes destructive conflict over scarce resources. It's an ancient, deeply wired part of our social inheritance, ensuring cooperation for the collective good. But as the millennia flowed on, a quiet revolution began to stir: the advent of agriculture. Suddenly, humanity wasn't just chasing its food, it was growing it. With fertile fields came surplus, and with surplus came stability. Small nomadic bands began to settle, growing into villages, then towns. And here, a fascinating challenge emerged, one that our ancient primate brains hadn't quite evolved for. Our capacity for maintaining stable social relationships, as cognitive anthropologist Robin Dunbar suggested, is naturally limited, perhaps to around 150 individuals. Beyond this, Dunbar's number, maintaining cohesion through personal acquaintance and informal social pressure becomes incredibly difficult. So, what happened when a community swelled beyond this intimate circle? New structures had to emerge, much like a tiny stream, once content to meander alone, must find a deeper, more defined channel when it joins a mighty river. Informal leadership gave way to more formalized roles. Those who could organize labor for irrigation, manage the stored grain, or defend the village from marauders gained influence. This wasn't just about personal charisma anymore. It was about the control of resources. The ability to produce and protect a surplus became the bedrock upon which new forms of power were built. We see this principle play out in ecology, where an individual's resource-holding potential, their ability to acquire and defend resources, often dictates their social standing. In early European societies, the chief or king who could promise a bountiful harvest or military protection held immense sway. And over time, this influence solidified. It began to be passed down, often from father to son, giving rise to hereditary monarchies. The idea of divine right, that a ruler's authority came directly from the heavens, emerged as a powerful tool for legitimizing this inherited power. It wasn't merely a belief. From a sociological perspective, shared religious narratives act as a powerful glue, fostering cooperation and social cohesion among vast numbers of non-kin individuals. By appealing to a higher power, these rulers could inspire collective action, maintain order, and solidify their control, transforming disparate groups into unified kingdoms. The intricate rituals and shared beliefs of religion, in a way, became a costly signal of commitment to the group, reinforcing trust and collective identity. Consider the intricate tapestry of medieval Europe, woven with the threads of feudalism. Here, power wasn't concentrated in a single absolute monarch, but rather distributed through a complex web of lords, vassals, and serfs. A king might grant land to a powerful duke in exchange for military service. The duke, in turn, would grant portions of that land to knights, who then oversaw the labor of peasants. This seemingly unequal system was, at its core, built on a form of reciprocal altruism, albeit an asymmetrical one. Each party, from king to serf, had obligations and expectations. The lord provided protection and access to land. The serf provided labor and loyalty. It was a societal bargain, a social contract of sorts, ensuring a measure of stability in a turbulent age. Though the benefits were unevenly distributed, the mutual dependency helped to maintain the structure, much like different species in an ecosystem rely on each other for balance. Loud. But power, like water, is always seeking new paths. As cities grew and trade routes expanded, new forms of wealth emerged independent of land ownership. Merchants, artisans, and bankers began to accumulate economic power, challenging the traditional authority of the landed aristocracy. Ideas, too, began to circulate more freely, carried on the winds of change. The Enlightenment, with its emphasis on reason and individual rights, began to chip away at the foundations of divine right and inherited privilege. The great revolutions of European history, like the seismic shift of the French Revolution, were not merely political upheavals. They were profound expressions of collective action. When enough individuals perceived that the existing power structure was unjust or no longer served their collective interests, the seemingly insurmountable walls of authority could crumble. This process, often studied through the lens of game theory and behavioral economics, involves overcoming the free rider problem, where individuals benefit without contributing, to unite for a common goal. It's a testament to the human capacity for cooperation, even against daunting odds, when a shared vision of a more equitable distribution of power emerges. The very wiring of our brains, responding to concepts of fairness and justice, plays a subtle but profound role in these grand historical shifts. In modern Europe, the evolution of power structures continues. Democracies, with their intricate systems of checks and balances, their elected representatives, and their formal constitutions, are humanity's ongoing attempt to distribute power more broadly and hold it accountable. These structures are, in a sense, a sophisticated societal adaptation designed to manage the ancient human drives for status and control while channeling them towards collective well-being. They reflect a deeper understanding of human psychology, recognizing the inherent biases and potential for corruption, and building institutions to mitigate them. It's a complex, ever-evolving dance between individual ambition and societal need. As we gently drift from the intricate mechanics of power's evolution, we carry with us the understanding that societies, much like living organisms, are constantly adapting, constantly responding to their environment, and constantly reshaping themselves. The story of power is never truly finished. It simply changes its form. And with that thought, we prepare to turn our attention to another fascinating chapter in European history: how great empires rose and fell, and the forces that propelled their expansions and ultimately their transformations. But that, my dear listener, is a story for our next quiet moment together. Sweet dreams. And so, as we journey further into the quiet tapestry of European history, we arrive at a fascinating, almost magical force: the power of an idea. Imagine, if you will, not a sword or a king's decree, but a single thought, whispered in a quiet corner, growing into a roar that echoes across continents. It's a force as potent and transformative as any physical engine, yet it moves through the invisible pathways of the mind. Think for a moment about what an idea truly is. It's not a tangible object you can hold, yet it possesses immense weight. From a scientific perspective, an idea is a complex pattern of electrochemical signals, a fleeting yet profound dance within the intricate neural networks of our brains. Each connection, each spark of insight, gently reshapes the landscape of our understanding, a phenomenon scientists call neural plasticity. Our very brains are constantly being rewired, a process that happens with every new concept we encounter. When these rewirings align across many minds, that's when change begins to stir. Now, how does such a delicate, internal phenomenon become an engine for vast societal change? It begins with transmission. An idea, much like a tiny seed, needs to travel to find fertile ground. For centuries, the spread of complex thoughts was a slow, arduous process. Imagine trying to share a vast, intricate piece of information, a new philosophy, a scientific discovery, a radical theological insight, across a continent when each copy had to be painstakingly written by hand. It was like sending a precious message across a vast ocean in a tiny hand-carved boat, vulnerable to storms, slow in its journey, and prone to slight changes with each retelling. Each vessel, unique and imperfect, carrying its cargo of wisdom. But then, something revolutionary occurred in Europe, a technological leap that utterly transformed the information architecture of the world. The advent of the printing press, particularly with movable type, was like suddenly paving superhighways where only dirt paths existed before. Suddenly, ideas could be replicated not just by the dozens, but by the hundreds, then thousands, then millions. This wasn't merely a faster way to make books. It was a fundamental shift in how information, those precious packets of understanding, could be transmitted. It dramatically increased the bandwidth of human thought, allowing complex arguments, revolutionary treatises, and scientific findings to flow with unprecedented speed and fidelity across vast social networks, from scholar to student, from city to village, from kingdom to kingdom. Consider the implications through the lens of network theory. Before, the network of educated minds was sparse, with information often bottlenecked at a few central hubs, like monasteries or royal courts. The printing press created a much denser, more interconnected network. It empowered individuals who were once on the fringes to become nodes of intellectual activity, drawing in new thoughts, interpreting them, and then radiating them outwards. Certain brilliant minds, like guiding stars, became powerful gravitational centers, pulling in nascent ideas, refining them with their own intellect, and then broadcasting them with newfound clarity and persuasive power, reaching further and deeper into the collective consciousness of Europe. Ideas, you see, are not static entities. They possess a kind of life of their own. They are born, they adapt, they combine, and they even compete. This process is akin to cultural evolution, where ideas that resonate, that offer compelling solutions, or that simply feel true to a growing number of people, tend to persist and replicate, spreading from mind to mind, generation to generation. They don't just passively exist, they evolve, much like species in an ecosystem. The Protestant Reformation, for example, wasn't just about Martin Luther's original challenge. It was an evolving set of theological ideas that adapted and branched out, leading to diverse new interpretations and practices across Europe. And sometimes, a single new idea, a tiny shift in perspective, can ripple outwards with profound, almost unpredictable consequences. a phenomenon we sometimes refer to as the butterfly effect in complex systems. A small change in initial conditions can lead to vastly different outcomes later on. A seemingly innocuous philosophical thought shared in a quiet Parisian salon could, over time, contribute to the tumultuous waves of revolution across the continent. This brings us to the very heart of ideas as engines of change, their capacity to convert potential energy into kinetic action. Think of an idea as pure potential energy stored within the minds of individuals. When enough minds embrace a similar idea, when the collective conviction reaches a critical mass, that potential energy can be released as tangible action, as movement, as profound societal transformation. Societies, much like certain chemical compounds, can reach a tipping point where a slow accumulation of shared understanding suddenly triggers a complete transformation, a dramatic change of state. Take the European Enlightenment, a period often referred to as the Age of Reason. It was a grand symphony of such evolving ideas. Philosophers like Locke, Rousseau, Voltaire, and Montesquieu cultivated radical notions of individual rights, reason, liberty, and the separation of powers. These weren't just abstract musings, they were blueprints for reshaping human experience, challenging age-old structures of power and belief. The idea that individuals possessed inherent rights, for instance, wasn't simply a nice thought. It was a disruptive force, gently but inexorably pushing against the old walls of monarchy and inherited privilege, much like a persistent root can crack stone over time. These ideas, nurtured in salons, debated in coffee houses, and widely distributed in printed pamphlets, built up a collective societal momentum that would ultimately fuel revolutions, redefine nations, and lay the groundwork for modern democratic governance. Or consider the scientific revolution, where the very idea of how to acquire knowledge transformed. For centuries, much knowledge was accepted based on tradition or authority. But then came the revolutionary idea that knowledge shouldn't just be inherited or decreed, but tested through observation and experiment. The concept of forming a hypothesis and subjecting it to rigorous scrutiny, of embracing falsifiability, the idea that a theory must be capable of being disproven, was a profound rewiring of human thought. It meant constantly challenging assumptions, refining understanding based on new evidence, and allowing for a continuous, accelerating evolution of knowledge. This wasn't merely about discovering that the Earth revolved around the Sun. It was a fundamental shift in how collective human consciousness interacted with and understood the natural world, leading to an explosion of scientific inquiry and technological innovation that continues to this day. As we drift deeper into the quiet night, let us remember how these unseen forces, these magnificent ideas, have shaped the very ground upon which we stand. They are the unseen architects, the silent engines, constantly at work, weaving and reweaving the fabric of our shared human story. But ideas alone do not feed a population or build a ship. For all their power to inspire, they needed material transformation to truly reshape the world. Imagine, if you will, the world as a vast, intricate loom. And in this period, the shuttles of change began to fly with unprecedented speed, transforming threads of daily life into an entirely new tapestry. For centuries, European societies had largely operated within familiar rhythms, their economies akin to slow, meandering rivers. But then, a great shift began. Like a curious seed pushing through ancient soil, a spirit of exploration bloomed, driven by a thirst for knowledge, new trade routes, and perhaps a whisper of what lay beyond the horizon. Ships, marvels of early engineering, began to push further, becoming not just vessels of wood and sail, but sophisticated biological and cultural vectors. They carried people, ideas, and, crucially, life itself across vast oceans. This was the dawn of what we now call the Columbian Exchange, a monumental, unintended ecological experiment on a global scale. Picture these ships crossing the Atlantic. They weren't just transporting spices and gold, they were living laboratories. From the Americas, foods like potatoes, tomatoes, maize, corn, and chili peppers began their journey to Europe. Scientifically, these were game changers. The potato, for instance, a humble tuber packed with carbohydrates and essential vitamins, offered an incredibly efficient calorie source for a growing population. Its ability to grow in poor soils and yield abundant harvests fundamentally altered European agriculture, providing a robust, reliable food supply that, according to some historians, directly fueled population growth and subsequent industrialization. This demonstrates a basic principle of a nutritional science. Readily available, calorie-dense foods are foundational for societal development. Conversely, European domestic animals like horses, cattle, and pigs traveled west, profoundly changing the ecosystems and ways of life in the Americas, sometimes leading to overgrazing and competition with native species. A lesson in the delicate balance of ecology and the impact of introduced species. But this exchange wasn't always benign. The movement of life included microscopic passengers. Diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza, to which Europeans had developed some immunity over centuries, crossed the oceans with devastating effect on indigenous populations in the Americas, who lacked such immunological defenses. This tragic exchange of pathogens highlights a stark biological reality. Our immune systems are products of evolutionary history, shaped by centuries of exposure and adaptation. The impact of these biological transfers was so profound that it often preceded military conquest, demonstrating the silent, powerful force of microbiology in shaping human history. Meanwhile, the pursuit of resources spurred new industries. The vast silver mines of Potosi, in what is now Bolivia, for example, poured incredible wealth into European coffers, but at a terrible environmental cost. The extraction process often involved mercury amalgamation to separate silver from ore, a chemical reaction that released highly toxic mercury vapor and waste into the environment, contaminating water sources and air, impacting the health of workers and the surrounding ecosystems. This early industrial-scale mining illustrates fundamental principles of geology and chemistry, revealing both the potential for resource extraction and its inherent environmental consequences. As the currents of exploration settled into established trade winds, Europe entered an even more profound transformation: the Industrial Revolution. Imagine a time when muscle power, animal power, and the gentle push of wind or water were the primary engines of human endeavor. Then, a new kind of power was unleashed, drawn from the very heart of the earth. Coal, that black, lustrous rock, was not merely a rock. It was millennia of stored sunlight, ancient forests compressed over geological epochs, a testament to the Earth's immense capacity for energy storage through the carbon cycle. When burned, this coal released its latent energy, a process of combustion that heats water to create steam. The steam engine, a marvel of early engineering, harnessed this heat energy and converted it into mechanical work, a practical application of the laws of thermodynamics. Suddenly, human ingenuity had found a way to amplify effort beyond anything previously imaginable. Factories, growing like metal forests, sprouted across the landscape. The whirring of gears, the rhythmic clang of machinery, these were the new sounds of progress. The textile industry, for example, was revolutionized by inventions like the spinning jenny and the power loom. These machines, built on principles of classical mechanics, levers, pulleys, and intricate gear systems, could produce cloth at speeds and volumes previously unthinkable. Iron, transformed through sophisticated smelting processes, a branch of materials chemistry, provided the backbone for these new machines, as well as for the railways and bridges that would soon crisscross the continent, forging new arteries of trade and transport. But with this immense power came new challenges. The dense urban centers that grew around factories became fertile ground not just for commerce, but also for disease. Early industrial cities faced monumental struggles with sanitation and public health, grappling with air and water pollution and the rapid spread of infectious diseases. These conditions laid the groundwork for future scientific advancements in epidemiology and public health, as societies began to understand the invisible pathways of germs and the need for organized sanitation. The economic transformations of this era were not confined to Europe. Their impact was truly global. Europe's insatiable demand for raw materials, cotton from India and the Americas, rubber from Southeast Asia, minerals from Africa, established complex global supply chains. These chains were often powered by colonial expansion, leading to a vast interconnectedness of economies, but often with deeply unequal power dynamics. The world, in essence, began to function as a single, if imbalanced, system, much like the intricate web of life in an ecosystem, where the removal or addition of one species can have cascading effects across the entire network. This nascent globalization was, in a way, an acceleration of the Earth's own biogeochemical cycles. As human activity began to move resources and products across vast distances at speeds never before seen. And so, the gentle currents of curiosity had become mighty rivers of commerce and industry, reshaping not just the economies, but the very landscapes and biological futures of continents. The lessons learned, sometimes painfully, about interconnectedness, resource management, and the far-reaching impact of human innovation continue to echo in our modern world. Yet, with this vast expansion came inevitable friction, as competing interests collided across borders and oceans. Where trade routes crossed and empires expanded, conflict was often inevitable. Even in the earliest days, the principles of physics were profoundly at play on European battlefields, long before the thunder of cannons. It's a story not just of kings and empires, but of the very fabric of human nature, viewed through the serene, illuminating lens of science. Imagine, if you will, The early European battlefields, long before the thunder of cannons. Even then, the principles of physics were profoundly at play, albeit often intuitively understood. A stone hurled from a sling, an arrow loosed from a bow. These were early exercises in ballistics, the science of projectile motion. The precise arc of that arrow, its speed, the inexorable pull of gravity dictating its descent back to Earth were all governed by immutable physical laws. As civilizations advanced, so too did their application of these laws. The great Roman engineers, for instance, in designing their formidable catapults and siege engines, were unconsciously mastering concepts of leverage and kinetic energy. Each twist of a rope, each carefully placed counterweight was an application of mechanical advantage, amplifying human strength to overcome the most formidable of fortifications. Imagine the sheer potential energy stored in a tightly wound torsion spring, waiting to be released, transforming into the kinetic energy that sent a massive stone hurtling towards a castle wall. Even the angles and thickness of medieval castle walls were early empirical explorations of structural integrity and material science, designed to distribute impact forces and resist the relentless assault of physics. It's a powerful reminder that even in ancient struggles, the universe's rules were quietly dictating the outcomes, like a silent, unseen architect of both destruction and defense. As Europe progressed through the centuries, the science of warfare evolved dramatically. The introduction of gunpowder, for example, heralded a chemical revolution on the battlefield. This dark, mysterious powder, a mixture of saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur, relies on a rapid, exothermic chemical reaction. A combustion that produces a massive volume of hot gases almost instantaneously. This sudden expansion creates immense pressure, propelling cannonballs and musket shot with unprecedented force. The development of metallurgy also became crucial. Crafting stronger, more reliable cannons and lighter, more resilient armor required an understanding of alloying metals, manipulating the atomic structure of iron to create steel, a material both tough and flexible. These advancements weren't just about bigger bangs, they were about a deeper, though often empirical, comprehension of the very elements that make up our world. Beyond the weaponry, consider the biological and ecological aspects of warfare. Armies, often numbering tens of thousands, were immense, moving ecosystems. The sheer energetic demands of marching, fighting, and surviving on campaign meant constant resource consumption. Food for soldiers and horses, timber for fortifications and ships, metals for weapons. This had profound ecological impacts, deforesting regions and depleting local resources, leaving an environmental footprint that could last for generations. And then there was the silent, invisible enemy, disease. In crowded, unsanitary camps, pathogens, like bacteria and viruses, spread with frightening speed. Typhus, dysentery, plague. These biological agents often claimed more lives than the fiercest battles. Understanding the epidemiology of these diseases, how they transmit from person to person through contaminated water or insect vectors, is a scientific lens that reveals a stark truth. A healthy, well-supplied army was often a more formidable force than one ravaged by microscopic foes. The human body, a complex biological machine, was a crucial yet fragile component of any military campaign, its resilience dictated by nutrition, hygiene, and immunity. Yet, for all the science of conflict, humanity has always sought avenues for peace. This brings us to the intricate art of diplomacy, a realm where the sciences of human behavior and communication take center stage. Imagine two envoys, representing warring nations, meeting across a polished table. Here, the subtle interplay of neuroscience and social psychology unfolds. Their brains, like sophisticated biological computers, are constantly processing information. The tone of voice, the flicker of an eye, the micro-expressions that betray underlying emotions. Mirror neurons. Those fascinating brain cells that activate both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it, play a role in empathy, allowing us to feel what another person might be experiencing. In a negotiation, these neurons can facilitate understanding, bridging the gap between differing perspectives, or, if misaligned, reinforce distrust. Diplomacy is also a living, breathing exercise in Bao game theory, a branch of mathematics that studies strategic decision-making. Negotiators are constantly weighing potential outcomes, assessing probabilities, and trying to predict the actions of their counterparts. Will a concession be met with reciprocity or seen as weakness? Will a threat escalate conflict or compel compromise? The famous prisoner's dilemma illustrates how even rational actors might choose to defect, acting in their perceived self-interest, even when cooperation would yield a better collective outcome. Diplomats strive to shift these payoff matrices, creating scenarios where cooperation becomes the more appealing, more stable strategy. It's about constructing a framework where mutual benefit outweighs the short-term gains of suspicion and aggression, transforming a zero-sum game into a positive-sum collaboration. This requires not just intellect, but emotional intelligence, a capacity for reading the subtle signals of the other, influencing their neurotransmitters, for trust like oxytocin, or modulating stress responses in the amygdala, to foster a calmer, more constructive environment. And what of the information itself? Diplomacy relies on the careful transmission and reception of messages. Early forms of cryptography were essential, ensuring that sensitive communications remained secure, preventing information from falling into enemy hands. This is a rudimentary form of information theory, the study of quantifying, storing, and communicating information. But messages, like any energy transfer, are susceptible to entropy, noise, distortion, misinterpretation. A diplomat's skill lies in minimizing this entropy, ensuring clarity, precision, and mutual understanding across cultural and linguistic divides, a complex process involving not just words, but shared contexts and trust. Finally, after the storm of conflict or the tension of negotiation, comes the delicate, vital process of peace building. This is where the sciences of healing, rebuilding, and long-term sustainability truly come to the fore. Think of a forest after a devastating fire. Initially scarred and barren, but gradually, resiliently, life begins to return. This ecological succession is a beautiful metaphor for peace building. Just as pioneer species colonized damaged land, laying the groundwork for more complex ecosystems, so too do initial acts of reconciliation and reconstruction pave the way for stable societies. Engineers rebuild bridges and homes, applying some materials science and structural engineering to mend the physical scars. Economists work to re-establish trade routes and livelihoods, understanding the delicate interdependencies that create economic stability. On a deeper human level, peace-building involves the remarkable capacity of the human brain for neuroplasticity. Our brains are not fixed. They can change, adapt, and even rewire themselves. After conflict, societies often suffer from deep-seated traumas, biases, and entrenched narratives of us versus them. Peace-building initiatives aim to gently guide this neuroplasticity, fostering new connections, new understandings. Through shared cultural exchanges, common projects, and inclusive dialogues, the brain's pathways can begin to form new associations, challenging old prejudices and building empathy. It's about the social psychology of identity, encouraging a broader sense of belonging that transcends historical divides, moving from rigid, exclusionary group identities to more fluid, inclusive ones. Consider the concept of symbiosis in biology, where different species live in close association for mutual benefit. A clownfish and its anemone, for example. Peace-building strives for a similar, though far more complex, symbiosis between nations and communities. It's about finding those areas of mutual reliance and advantage where collaboration becomes not just desirable but essential for shared prosperity and security. This relies on establishing positive feedback loops. Successful cooperation on one issue builds trust, making cooperation on the next issue easier, creating an upward spiral towards lasting peace. It's a scientific endeavor in its own right, understanding how to nurture cooperation from the smallest human interaction to the largest international treaty. So, as we contemplate these intricate dance steps of conflict and harmony, we see that European history, like all human stories, is deeply interwoven with the fundamental principles of the universe, from the trajectory of an arrow to the delicate chemistry of trust in the human brain. Yet beneath all these grand structures of war and peace lay something even more fundamental. Beneath the clash of armies and the signing of treaties, there pulsed the quiet heartbeat of everyday existence, the intricate, invisible threads that bind us all together in the very fabric of human society and culture. Imagine, if you will, the vast tapestry of European history not merely as a sequence of battles and coronations, but as an ever-evolving, shimmering weave spun from the deepest reaches of the human mind and heart. It is here, in the gentle hum of shared existence, that science offers us profound insights, revealing the subtle mechanisms that have shaped the continent's distinct ways of life, its enduring traditions, and its collective dreams. At the very core of this tapestry lies our inherent capacity for connection, a fundamental truth etched into our biology. Long before great cities rose or empires sprawled, our ancestors, like all humans, were predisposed to group living. Consider the silent orchestrators within our brains, neurochemicals like oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, fostering trust and attachment, not just between mother and child, but between individuals within a community. It's the whisper of this ancient biological imperative that laid the groundwork for the earliest European settlements, encouraging cooperation in hunting, gathering, and later, in the cultivation of fields that would transform landscapes from the Mediterranean shores to the frigid North Sea. These invisible threads of affection and reliance were the bedrock upon which familial units blossomed into clans, and clans into villages, each a constellation of individuals finding strength and solace in togetherness. Then, picture the brain's intricate dance, especially the remarkable mirror neurons. These specialized cells, firing both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it, are like tiny empathetic antennae, allowing us to grasp the intentions and emotions of others. This neural mirroring is not just about understanding. It's a powerful engine for cultural learning. It's how ancient artisans in Mycenae learned to forge bronze, how medieval masons learned to arch stone with breathtaking precision, and how folk songs passed from parent to child across generations. Through this silent subconscious imitation, skills, traditions, and even moral values are transferred, weaving a continuous cultural narrative through time. European societies, from the Roman Republic's legalistic structures to the intricate social etiquette of an 18th century salon, are all testament to our brain's extraordinary capacity for absorbing and transmitting complex social norms and behaviors. But what truly elevates human society to its intricate complexity is language. Imagine it as the very architecture of our shared reality, building bridges not just from sound to meaning, but from individual experience to collective understanding. The evolution of complex language allowed early European groups to coordinate grander hunts, plan for future seasons, and crucially, to tell stories. These narratives, passed down through oral traditions before the advent of widespread literacy, formed what we might call a collective memory, a shared reservoir of experiences, myths, and historical understanding that transcended any single lifespan. From the epic sagas recounting heroic deeds in Norse halls to the parables whispered in early Christian communities, language encoded the values, the fears, and the aspirations of entire peoples. This vast ocean of remembrance, accessible to all who spoke the tongue, became a unifying force, shaping identity and distinguishing one nascent European culture from another. As these collective memories deepened and spread, so too did the invisible frameworks of society, the norms, values, and institutions that guide human interaction. These aren't arbitrary rules. They are emergent properties of our social instincts and our cognitive capacity for abstraction. Think of the transition from simple tribal customs to the elaborate legal codes of the Roman Empire, or the intricate feudal systems that governed medieval Europe. These societal structures, though seemingly rigid, are in essence a complex negotiation between individual needs and collective harmony, constantly adapting and evolving. Even subtle interactions, the way we greet each other, the unspoken rules of a communal meal, or the traditions surrounding rites of passage, are all echoes of deeply ingrained cultural patterns, learned and reinforced through countless interactions, becoming deeply embedded in our cognitive pathways. This continuous dance between our biology and our environment has even led to fascinating instances of gene culture co-evolution. Consider, for example, the widespread ability of many Europeans to digest lactose into adulthood, while common elsewhere in the world for milk consumption to cease after childhood. In many European populations, the practice of dairying, a cultural innovation that provided a rich source of calories, created a selective pressure. Over millennia, Individuals with a genetic mutation allowing for continued lactase production thrived, and this gene spread. Here, a cultural practice subtly altered our very biology, showing a deep and often overlooked conversation between our bodies and our ways of living, leaving an enduring mark on the genetic landscape of a continent. And what of the boundless creativity that has blossomed across Europe? From the cave paintings of Lascaux to the soaring cathedrals, from Renaissance masterpieces to the symphonies of the Enlightenment. This profound human drive to express, to create, and to find meaning through art, music, and literature is not merely an embellishment. It's a fundamental aspect of our cognitive architecture. It allows us to externalize our inner worlds, to share emotions, ideas, and abstract concepts that transcend the literal. These symbolic expressions become vital channels for cultural transmission, reinforcing shared values, commemorating collective experiences, and envisioning new possibilities. A painting, a poem, a melody. Each is a luminous thread spun from imagination, weaving individual experience into the grand collective narrative of a culture, allowing generations separated by centuries to communicate across time. So, as we contemplate the magnificent sweep of European history, let us remember that beneath the surface of political maneuvering and technological advancement lies this profound, intricate, and deeply biological story of humanity's ceaseless quest for connection and meaning. We are not just participants in culture. We are, in a very real sense, both its architects and its creations, our brains constantly shaping and being shaped by the societies we build. These societies, shaped by their own unique cultures and histories, did not remain isolated within their continent. Imagine, if you will, a magnificent old tree, its roots deeply entwined with centuries of soil, its branches once stretching wide, casting long shadows across vast landscapes. For a long time, Europe was, in many ways, that tree, a center of gravity, a powerful engine driving much of the world's exploration, trade, and innovation. In eras past, the winds of discovery and industry primarily blew outwards from its shores. The great age of exploration, for instance, was fueled by a thirst for new resources and trade routes. European vessels, powered by sail, an elegant application of fluid dynamics and wind energy, traversed vast oceans, connecting continents in ways never before imagined. This period also laid the groundwork for the Industrial Revolution, a transformative wave that fundamentally altered human civilization. It was an era defined by a burgeoning understanding of thermodynamics, the science of heat and energy, which allowed for the harnessing of steam power and the rapid development of factories. Yet, as we now understand, this very progress, driven by the burning of fossil fuels, began to release unprecedented amounts of carbon dioxide into our planet's atmosphere, slowly but surely altering its delicate atmospheric chemistry. A subtle, silent change that would, much later, reveal itself as a profound global challenge. But the world is a dynamic, interconnected system, much like a vast living ecosystem where no single species remains dominant indefinitely. Just as different species rise and fall or adapt to new environments, so too do civilizations and centers of influence. Over recent decades, the global landscape has begun to shift, like slow-moving tectonic plates beneath the Earth's crust. New economic powers have emerged, particularly across Asia, their industries humming with innovative energy, their populations growing. This shift isn't a diminishment of Europe, but rather a rebalancing, an expansion of the global stage to include a more diverse cast of players. Think of it as the grand old tree, realizing it is part of an even grander forest, one where many trees, young and old, now reach for the sunlight, each contributing to the collective vitality of the whole. This evolving role brings with it new responsibilities and shared challenges. Perhaps the most profound among them is climate change, a legacy partly inherited from those early industrial revolutions. Europe, having been at the forefront of the initial carbon emissions, has increasingly positioned itself as a leader in addressing this global concern. Its commitment to renewable energy sources, harnessing the boundless energy of the sun through photovoltaics, and the relentless power of the wind through aerodynamics, is a testament to this shift. Scientists across Europe contribute vital research to understanding the complex feedback loops of our planet's climate system, from the delicate balance of the carbon cycle to the intricate dynamics of ocean currents that distribute heat and nutrients globally. They monitor the steady rise in global temperatures, the subtle acidification of our oceans, and the alarming rate of biodiversity loss, all indicators of a planetary system under stress. Europe's role now involves not just contributing to scientific understanding, but also pioneering policy frameworks and technological solutions to mitigate these impacts, striving to protect the delicate planetary boundaries that sustain all life. Then there's the ongoing wave of technological transformation. While new digital frontiers are rapidly being explored globally, Europe remains a significant contributor to fundamental scientific research and ethical considerations in the digital age. Institutions like CERN, nestled on the Franco-Swiss border, continue to push the boundaries of particle physics, helping us understand the very fabric of the universe. European researchers are deeply involved in the development of artificial intelligence, often with a strong emphasis on algorithmic transparency and ethical governance, ensuring that these powerful new tools serve humanity responsibly. In the realm of biotechnology and medicine, European scientists continue to make breakthroughs in areas like genetic editing and vaccine development, applying principles of molecular biology and immunology to address global health challenges. Europe isn't always the first to launch the next big consumer gadget, but its strength often lies in foundational science, rigorous standards, and a deep-seated commitment to humanistic values woven into technological progress. Demographic shifts also play a crucial part in this evolving narrative. Many European nations face aging populations, a phenomenon understood through population dynamics. The study of how populations change over time, influenced by birth rates, death rates, and migration. This demographic reality necessitates new approaches to social support, healthcare, and economic vitality. Simultaneously, global migration patterns, often driven by factors ranging from economic opportunities to the devastating impacts of climate change or conflict, echoing ecological dispersal patterns in nature, bring new people and perspectives to Europe's shores. This influx of diverse human capital presents both challenges and opportunities. demanding thoughtful integration policies and a societal understanding of cultural evolution. In essence, Europe's changing global role is a story of metamorphosis. From a dominant force, it is transforming into a sophisticated partner, a bridge builder, and a steward of shared global values. Its influence now often manifests through multilateral institutions, through setting high environmental and social standards, and through fostering international cooperation on issues that transcend borders. It is less about wielding singular power and more about cultivating collective wisdom, applying its vast historical experience and scientific prowess to global challenges. It's a journey from the center of a self-contained world to a vital, integral node within a vast, interconnected global network. Much like a sophisticated neural network, where each node contributes uniquely to the processing and understanding of complex information. As the world continues to spin and new challenges and opportunities emerge on the horizon, Europe's role will undoubtedly continue to evolve. But its deep well of historical wisdom, its enduring commitment to scientific inquiry, and its capacity for collaboration will remain invaluable assets as it faces what lies ahead. What does lie ahead? The horizon shimmers with both challenges and possibilities, like astronomers peering into distant nebulae, discerning patterns and possibilities within the vastness. Imagine Europe not as a fixed map, but as a vast, living organism, constantly evolving. Just as a forest ecosystem thrives on the delicate balance of new saplings and ancient trees, human societies, too, undergo profound transformations in their demographic structures. We observe, with the calm precision of a biologist studying cellular division, how birth rates ebb and flow, creating what demographers call population pyramids, like geological strata, but made of human lives. In many parts of Europe, these pyramids are gently shifting, their bases narrowing, their peaks broadening. This reflects a phenomenon known as demographic transition, a scientific process observed globally, where societies move from high birth and death rates to low ones. It's a testament to advancements in medicine, sanitation, and nutrition, the very fruits of scientific inquiry that have lengthened our lifespans and enriched our later years. But like any ecosystem change, this shift presents its own elegant challenges. An aging population, rich in wisdom and experience, also means a smaller proportion of younger individuals supporting the infrastructure. This is a fascinating biological and societal challenge, akin to understanding how a mature forest manages its resources when fewer new seeds germinate. How do we ensure the metabolic needs of the whole organism are met, the energy flows sustained? It's a question of societal metabolism, of resource allocation, and of ensuring that every stage of life is vibrant and supported, echoing the intricate chemical pathways that sustain every living cell. And just as ocean currents carry microscopic life forms across vast distances, enriching distant shores, human migration represents another profound force shaping the European tapestry. It's a dynamic process of gene flow, of cultural information exchange, that has shaped human history since our earliest migrations out of Africa. From a biological perspective, this exchange introduces genetic diversity, potentially strengthening the population's resilience to future challenges, much like a diverse gene pool helps a species adapt to changing environments. It's a complex interplay of ancient instincts and modern realities, a tapestry woven with threads from countless origins, each bringing its unique hue and texture to the evolving European design. Now, let us turn our gaze to a challenge that transcends national borders, a planetary hum that whispers of change, the evolving climate. For millennia, Earth's climate has been a grand dance of ice ages and warmer periods, driven by celestial mechanics and geophysical forces. But in recent centuries, we've observed a rapid acceleration, a clear scientific fingerprint of human activity. The gentle warmth we feel is amplified by an increase in atmospheric greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane, which act like a protective blanket, trapping heat. Think of our atmosphere as a vast, intricate chemical laboratory. The subtle addition of certain molecules, primarily from the burning of ancient carbon stores, fossil fuels, has shifted the delicate equilibrium. Scientists, using sophisticated atmospheric models and ice core samples that capture air from thousands of years ago, can trace this chemical alteration with remarkable precision. We're witnessing the hydrological cycle intensify, leading to more extreme weather events, heavier rains and floods in some regions, prolonged droughts and wildfires in others. The expansion of warming oceans and melting glaciers contribute to a gradual yet inexorable rise in sea levels, like a slowly filling bathtub, posing particular challenges to Europe's extensive coastlines. This isn't just about temperature. It's about energy. The additional energy trapped in the Earth system manifests in countless ways, from altered ocean currents that distribute heat across the globe, to changes in biodiversity as species struggle to adapt their life cycles to warmer seasons. Europe, with its diverse ecosystems and dense populations, stands at a crucial juncture, tasked with navigating these changes, reducing its carbon footprint, and innovating towards a more sustainable energy future, mirroring the very energy efficiency principles we observe in resilient biological systems. But alongside these grand challenges, humanity's enduring capacity for innovation shines like a distant nebula, promising new light. The scientific revolution that began in Europe centuries ago continues to gather momentum. We are seeing breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, a field that seeks to understand and replicate aspects of human cognition, pushing the boundaries of what machines can learn and create. These AI systems, based on complex algorithms and vast datasets, are like a new form of collective intelligence, learning patterns from the universe of information we generate, much like our own brains form connections. The quest for sustainable energy, too, is a testament to human ingenuity. Solar panels, harnessing the power of a star billions of miles away through the photoelectric effect, and wind turbines, capturing the kinetic energy of air currents through aerodynamic principles, are transforming our energy landscape. These are elegant solutions rooted in fundamental physics, allowing us to tap into the ceaseless energy flows of our planet, mimicking nature's own efficiency. And in the realm of biotechnology, we are learning to read and even edit the very code of life, DNA. This profound scientific understanding opens doors to new medical treatments, more resilient crops, and perhaps even novel ways to manage waste. Quantum computing promises to unlock computational power beyond our current imagining, potentially revolutionizing everything from materials science to medicine. These aren't mere tools, they are extensions of our understanding, our senses, and our collective will to shape a better future. Europe, in its intricate tapestry of nations, cultures, and economies, can be seen as a living, complex system, much like an ecological biome or even a vast neural network. The challenges it faces, demographic shifts, climate change, technological transformation, are not isolated phenomena but interconnected forces, creating feedback loops that ripple through the entire structure. The beauty lies in its resilience, its ability to adapt and evolve, a characteristic shared by all successful biological systems. The destiny of Europe, then, is not predetermined, like the path of a celestial body, but rather an emergent property of millions of individual choices, guided by collective wisdom and scientific understanding. It hinges on the capacity for collaboration, for sharing knowledge and resources, for seeing commonality in diversity, much like the symbiotic relationships that allow different species to thrive together in a shared habitat. It's about leveraging the collective intelligence of its people, its institutions, and its rich history of scientific inquiry to navigate the turbulent waters ahead, always seeking harmony, always seeking understanding. As the quietude deepens, let us remember that the future, though uncharted, is filled with possibilities. The scientific principles that govern our universe, from the smallest atom to the grandest galaxy, also offer us pathways to understanding and shaping our human world. Europe, with its legacy of discovery and its spirit of inquiry, is poised to continue its remarkable journey, not just as a geographical entity, but as an idea, a living experiment in human cooperation and progress. And as we ponder these grand challenges and the vast potential they unlock, our minds may begin to wander to the very fabric of our being and the curious journey of consciousness itself, which we will gently explore next. And so, my dear listener, as the day's last light softens beyond the window and the world outside begins its quiet descent into slumber, let us gently draw our journey to a close. We have wandered together in the landscape of our minds across a continent steeped in the echoes of countless generations. We've traversed the vast, intricate tapestry that is European history, not as a collection of dry facts, but as a living, breathing narrative unfolding through the passage of immense time. From the very earliest stirrings of human ingenuity, when ancient hands first shaped tools and minds first conceived of community, we felt the nascent pulse of discovery. We imagined the foundational strength of empires that stretched across vast lands, their very stones whispering tales of order, innovation, and the ambitious reach of the human spirit. Their ideas, their artistry, their very ways of organizing life, gently seeded the ground for all that was to follow, much like a patient gardener tending to the soil for future blooms. Then, as time flowed onward, we sensed the deep, quiet rhythm of the medieval ages, a period of contemplation and construction where faith and daily life were intricately woven. We saw the patient crafting of cathedrals, the slow, steady development of thought in cloistered halls, and the enduring resilience of people living close to the land, their lives a quiet testament to endurance and hope. It was a time of consolidation, of gradual growth, like a deep root system, preparing for a glorious blossoming. And what a blossoming it was! We drifted through the vibrant awakening of the Renaissance, where forgotten wisdom was rediscovered, and the human spirit soared with renewed curiosity and creative zeal. Minds sparked with art, science, and philosophy, illuminating the world with fresh perspectives. It was a time when the boundaries of understanding expanded, not just across continents as brave explorers set sail, but within the very chambers of the human heart and mind, asking deeper questions, painting richer visions. Following this bright explosion, we acknowledged the powerful currents of change, sometimes serene, sometimes tumultuous, that swept through the modern era. We saw ideas like powerful rivers carve new paths, reshaping societies, challenging established norms, and continually pushing towards new horizons of freedom, knowledge, and collective purpose. Each revolution, each quiet innovation, each heartfelt plea for justice played its part in the ongoing symphony of human progress, sometimes discordant, often harmonious, always moving forward. Through it all, through every era of ascent and introspection, of challenge and quiet triumph, the most enduring thread has been the human spirit itself, the capacity for invention, for profound connection, for boundless empathy, and for unwavering resilience. It is the story of countless individuals, each with their own dreams and struggles, who, in their own ways, contributed a tiny, invaluable stitch to this grand, intricate fabric. It is a story of learning, of adapting, of connecting, and of slowly, collectively, understanding what it means to be human in this shared world. This vast European journey, stretching from the mists of antiquity to the bustling present, is not merely a chronicle of events. No, it is a profound reflection on the nature of time itself, on the beautiful impermanence of things, and on the enduring legacy that each generation bequeaths to the next. It reminds us that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves, connected to echoes of past lives and contributing in our own quiet ways to the whispers that will guide the future. Isn't that a wondrous thought, to be so intimately woven into the very fabric of history? Now, as the last vestiges of daylight fade and a peaceful darkness gathers, let your own thoughts begin to soften. Let the vastness of this human journey, with its grand sweep of change and continuity, cradle you not with the weight of facts, but with the gentle assurance of patterns, of growth, and of an ongoing story that has always found a way forward. Feel the quiet wisdom that comes from understanding how much has been built, how much has been learned, and how much beauty has been created over the eons. And as you drift deeper, ever so gently, into the soft embrace of sleep, imagine that this grand journey of European history continues, not in dusty tomes or bustling cities, but in the serene, boundless landscapes of your dreams. Perhaps you'll wander through sun-dappled ancient groves, hearing the murmurs of forgotten wisdom, or sail on starlit seas guided by the same constellations that inspired ancient mariners. Maybe you'll find yourself amidst the quiet brilliance of a medieval scriptorium, or witness the vibrant colors of a Renaissance masterpiece coming to life under the gentle glow of the moon. In the tranquil realm of dreams, time flows differently, softly, without urgency. All these moments, All these lives, all these places exist in a timeless peace, waiting for you to simply observe, without worry, without haste. Let your mind rest now, knowing that this incredible human story, with all its light and shadow, its challenges and its deep, quiet lessons, is secure. It is part of the very air we breathe, the ground beneath us, the stars above. And in the quiet sanctuary of your sleep, it continues its gentle, eternal dance, a lullaby across the ages. Good night, my dear listener. May your dreams be filled with peace, wonder, and the enduring beauty of time. And now, my dear friend, as the day gently folds itself into the quiet embrace of night, let us take a moment to softly close the book on our wondrous journey. We have traversed vast, unseen landscapes, not with hurried steps, but with the gentle curiosity of a whispered thought. We have ventured into the very heart of existence, a realm so intricate, so profound, yet often hidden from our everyday gaze. Remember how we quietly stepped into that world, smaller than a speck of dust, yet teeming with life and purpose? We didn't need a grand telescope or a roaring rocket. Our journey was one of imagination, guided by the soft glow of understanding. We simply let our minds drift, like a feather on a gentle breeze, through the silent, bustling cities of the microcosm. We spoke of the tiny architects, the invisible builders that craft every leaf, every drop of dew, every beat of your own heart. We didn't name all their parts or chart every single pathway, for our purpose was not to memorize, but to marvel. We simply felt the quiet hum of their tireless work, the delicate precision with which they arranged themselves, forming patterns of breathtaking beauty and function. These are the ancient, patient hands that weave the very fabric of reality, a tapestry so fine, so detailed, it can only be truly appreciated with a quiet heart. And then we pause to observe the countless tiny dancers, the unseen inhabitants that flit and swim and glide through every corner of our world, and indeed within ourselves. We didn't need to understand their every move, only to feel the vibrant energy of their collective existence. They are the silent partners in life's grand ballet, each playing a vital, intricate role, contributing to the delicate balance that allows forests to grow tall and oceans to teem with life. Isn't it a comforting thought to know that even in the smallest drop of water, there is a universe of gentle activity, a symphony playing on, unheard by our ears, but felt by our souls? We didn't delve into complex theories or challenging equations. Instead, we simply allowed ourselves to be present with the idea that everything, absolutely everything, is made of these miniature wonders. From the solid ground beneath your feet to the soft air you breathe, from the light of the moon to the warmth of your own skin, it is all a magnificent assembly of the incredibly small. And in this realization, there is a profound sense of interconnectedness, a gentle reminder that we are all woven from the same miraculous threads, part of the same grand unfolding story. This journey wasn't about finding definitive answers, but about nurturing a sense of wonder. It was about feeling the quiet awe that comes from glimpsing the hidden artistry of the universe, knowing that beneath the surface of what we see and touch, there is an entire world of silent, intricate beauty perpetually at work. It's a beauty that doesn't demand attention, but simply is, constant and true, a source of endless fascination and peaceful contemplation. As you lie here, Nestled in the comfort of your bed, perhaps you can still feel the gentle echo of that tiny world within you. The same wondrous processes, the same delicate balances, the same tireless, invisible work is happening right now, keeping you safe, keeping you warm, keeping you alive. It's a reassuring thought, isn't it? To know that even when you are still, even when you are resting, the microcosm within you continues its gentle, life-sustaining dance. There's no need to grasp it all or to hold on to every detail. The true gift of our journey was simply to open our hearts to the possibility, to allow a quiet sense of marvel to settle within us, to understand that the greatest wonders are often the most subtle, the most unassuming, the ones that whisper their secrets rather than shout them. And now, as your eyelids grow heavy and your breath deepens, allow that feeling of gentle wonder to accompany you. The world, both vast and microscopic, continues its peaceful rhythm. The stars will twinkle, the moon will shine, and the countless tiny wonders will continue their silent, beautiful work, whether we are awake to observe them or not. Let your mind drift, knowing that the journey through the wonders of the microcosm doesn't truly end here. It simply transforms. As you close your eyes, perhaps your dreams will become new landscapes for exploration, new pathways into the unseen, where the tiny architects and the silent dancers will continue their ballet just for you. Sleep now, my dear friend, and may your dreams be filled with the quiet, comforting magic of the universe, both within and without. Good night.